My special guest tonight is the artist formerly known as Yorgos Kyriakos Panayiotou. He's a one-time disc jockey at the Bel Air restaurant in Bushey, who became a superstar of modern popular music. He's a boy who worked as a dishwasher in his father's restaurant, who Sir Elton John described as the Paul McCartney of his generation. More recently, he's been in the news because of what's been described as the most public coming out in history. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome please, George Michael. May we begin?
What a lovely bunch. They're very large, these Greek families, aren't they?
Well, nice to see you anyway. Good to see you. I'm good to finally...
I have to say, before we start, actually, I wanted to say that this is a great honour for me, because I can remember being, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, and my mum would allow me to stay up beyond a certain time in the evening only to watch the Parkinson show, which has got to be a bit of quality watching, so I'm very, very privileged to be here.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. Very kind of you. It's good to have you.
And she probably wouldn't have been quite as thrilled that I had to take my willy out to get on here. I mean, really, would I have been on for an hour tonight without that incident?
It beats sleeping with the producer anyway, but certainly it's... yes, of course you've been on for an hour.
Because I remember calling earlier in the year and they said they could get me a walk-on Going for a Song. That was about it, you know. And suddenly here I am.
Oh, here you are. Let's talk about that incident which led you to be here tonight. I mean, what happened? What was the story?
I think it's fairly well documented by now. I mean, it's something that I've had to talk about for a while, just so that I can not have to talk about it in the future, you know. What happened was basically I fell prey to one of these SWAT teams that they have in America, and I think they probably still have them in parts of England. You know, it was a stupid moment, and obviously I've suffered for it.
I suppose a lot of people would ask the question about why you, as a public figure, as somebody who is recognised, both here and in America, why you take such an outrageous risk?
Well, I suppose that's the whole point, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so. I mean, I think so. I don't know. I mean, to some degree, you know, I was not in the best state of mind, and it was a kind of reckless thing to do.
You took the decision, I think, 24 hours after all this was happening, with the helicopters and news crews all that. You decided to go to a restaurant, didn't you? Just to make your public declaration. Tell me what happened when you went there.
Well, I suppose there's one recurring theme to my actions as a celebrity or as a person, as an adult, and that is if I'm pressured into anything or pressured into a point of view or a certain position, either by individuals or by history, i.e. the way that celebrities normally deal with scandal and shame, you know, or supposed shame, I react against it. And my reaction to this was, I'm not going to be like another one of these people that's peeking out from behind their net curtains a month later, you know, trying to get rid of the press. They were surrounding the house, and I thought, for God's sake, you know, what is the game here? What do you want, a reconstruction? What is it, you know? Why are you all here? So I thought, I'm just going to go out for a meal. I know they'll all chase me. I know they'll just, you know, I know it will cause, and it did cause havoc. You had all these cars going across red lights and this, and I was just ambling down to my local restaurant, you know, and I just thought that's the only way to deal with it. In fact, someone had said something to me earlier in the day that one of my closest friends said that his mother said, he's not the first, he won't be the last, he's just the biggest. And I thought, well, I like that. I like that. You can take that any way you want. Sure. But I thought, if you know, if so, and this is so, and she was, and she's the friend of my mum, and she's in her 60s. So if someone at that age can see it in perspective, from another generation can see it in that kind of perspective, I thought, you know, then pretty much most people probably will. And I gathered confidence over that day and a half that there really was no need for this to be a disaster.
You obviously talked to friends as well, and you found solace and consolation and inspiration, I suppose, from them. Since you came back from here and came back to England, what's been the public reaction? Has there been any anti-public reaction, for instance?
Well, I was saying to people, 3 or 4 months after the arrest, I could honestly say that if someone had bashed me over the head before I got back from LA and given me amnesia, I wouldn't have known what was going on. All I would have known was that I was signing more autographs, more people were coming up to me in the street and saying, we love what you do and good luck to you and this and that. And with the exception of a few cars that drive past at 50 miles an hour, you queer bastard. Yeah? And they're gone before you can even absorb the insult. So it's like, you know, with the exception of that, which might have confused me a little, I wouldn't have known what was going on. I wouldn't have known. Everyone's been so great, you know.
When you called your dad from LA, didn't you?
He called me, actually.
He called me,
yeah. That was not a phone call I was looking forward to, I have to admit. I don't think it's terribly inhuman of me to admit to that.
But your dad knew, of course, that you're...
Yeah, my dad. I was out with my dad.
Of course, that's right. But what did he say to you?
Well, my dad, I mean, he's been great about my sexuality in general. I think, obviously, it wasn't easy for him at first to accept. But I didn't know how he would react, but he basically called me up and said, tell him all to sod off. You know, tell them all to sod off, you know, you're who you are, you know, you've got nothing to be ashamed of, and tell them to sod off. And so that's basically what I did.
Let's go back there. You mentioned your dad there, and I mean, he came over from Cyprus as an immigrant, had quid in his pocket, and worked hard, and married your mum, built up a business. What sort of a background was it that you grew up in? What kind of was it a very close family background?
Very close. It was... My connection with my mother, I spent a lot more time around my mother. So from that point of view, my mother being English and in a strange way very kind of classless, because she came from a very working class background, but she'd been sent to a convent school because her mother was afraid she was going to be a tomboy. So she was sent to a convent school, which firstly put her straight off religion, and she spoke very well. So she spoke almost with a middle class accent. So I had this kind of really weird thing that I spoke like someone who was relatively middle class, and yet my father was first-generation immigrant. So the mentality of the two things, and my mother was also very, very British in that she had I get my attitude to money from her, which is always, you know, her attitude to money was it was something to be afraid of, and that took a long time for me to get rid of that idea, you know. And yet my father's attitude to money was you just grab it and move up, you know. Yes. So I had this really strange mixture of cultural ideas and class ideas. And I didn't actually understand until I was maybe 15 or 16 that I wasn't like a lot of the kids that I was growing up with, because they came from relatively working class backgrounds and had an automatic suspicion of, you know, kind of upward mobility. Yes. Which is what my mother had. But it was these two ideas constantly...
But what about the business of being what you are now, the musician, the songwriter? I mean, did you display an early talent for singing or for...
I didn't, actually. I got thrown out of the choir.
Did you?
I was thrown out of the choir for, I think, as far as I know, it was for talking. And I always remember my dad used to say to me, you know, because I used to say, Dad, that when I was like, you know, 16, 17, 18, and my dad was threatening to throw me out of the house if I didn't get a job within a certain amount of time. So obviously I went out and got jobs, but I was saying I want to be a singer, you know, I think I'm going to be rich and famous. And he would say, you know, everybody wants to be a pop singer, everybody wants, and I would say, no, Dad, everybody wants to be a pop singer when they're 12, you know, when they're 12. This is my whole life, this is what I want to do. But I've lost my train of thought.
But was it to be rich and famous, your ambition? I mean, was that...
No, I think I had two very, very strong ambitions, and they've always fought against one another, always. And one was a passion for music and an ability to communicate through music, and really a sense of purpose through music. and two was this desire to be, and rich and famous is not right, because actually rich never came into it. I actually